Sonic R is most known for its amazing original soundtrack. The 5 included courses have their own songs. Even the credits have a pretty catchy tune. Pair this with some beautiful scenery and you have a classic Sega experience. To go ahead and address the elephant in the room, these controls are just abysmal. I've played the PC port in the past and it didn't magically solve this issue. I'm sure the Sonic Gems inclusion's just as bad. It's not the fault of the console or heck the asinine controller, it's purely botched programming. But more on that later. I just wanted to point it out now because most of the footage is me pinballing my way through the stages. Now, let's get the basics out of the way. This is the first 3D Sonic game in the franchise. If we want to get nitpicky, Sonic Jam came out a couple months earlier and it features a 3D hub world of sorts. But considering the re-releases of Genesis-era Sonic games were the real meat and potatoes, I don't think it gets the crown of first 3D Sonic game. Imagine being a Sonic fan at release in 1997 and seeing Knuckles glide through the air in a 3-dimensional space. Back then, this had to be pretty awesome to see. Besides the character models, you also have very vibrant levels. Every bit of color pops. It truly captures the vibe of the 2D titles. I also find it pretty cool how they handled the draw distance. Instead of things popping in, they fade in instead. It's less jarring and not as noticeable. Sure, pop-ins still happen, but it's infrequent. All in all, the game looks great. There is a plot, but it's only found in the manual, and it's nothing crazy. Sonic and Tails are on vacation and see advertisements for a Grand Prix. Sonic, not caring at first, just so happens to notice that Robotnik is competing in it. Come to find out, Robotnik has word that there are nearby Chaos Emeralds and the Grand Prix may lead to them. Amy and Knuckles overhear this, somehow, kind of questioning the layout of this whole situation, like where's this all going down? But anyway, everyone now is participating. At first, you only have access to Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. Robotnik is unlocked after beating the game. The rest of the lot characters require finding the in-game collectibles, which we'll get into. There's 4 initial tracks. After finishing in first place in those, you unlock the final 5th one. You got the Grand Prix, the main game mode, where each track has 3 laps. Obviously, the replay values found in the additional content and perfecting lap times. Under Time Attack, you got a few options. You can run the courses in the normal way or in reverse. Then there's this tag mode where you are timed on how fast you can touch the other racers. Kind of cool as they can go in either direction and down different paths. Then there's this balloon hunt mode where you just gotta explore the levels and look for these balloons. It's pretty good. I mean, it's okay. The hit detection's a little wonky, but besides that, no complaints. So yeah, I'll be the first to admit that there's not a whole lot of content. So you have to be someone who's interested in the idea of beating the fastest lap times and going for 100% completion. Unless you have a friend to play split screen with. I do not have a second Saturn controller, so I wasn't able to test this mode, but seeing as the single player runs at a steady frame rate with like no hiccups, I assume it's kind of the same way. The races are pretty simple in theory, but the layouts themselves can be a little confusing. Of course, the goal is to be the first one across the finish line, but what route do you take? This minimap might as well be useless. The only way to figure out what paths are best is trial and error and exploration. Ignore trying to win, just try to find the fastest route and where everything kind of ends up. There are doors that only open if you have a certain amount of rings. They may not be shortcuts and instead are just home to collectibles, which are tokens and Chaos Emeralds. Finding all 7 Chaos Emeralds while finishing in first place unlocks Super Saiyan Sonic. Finding all 5 tokens and finishing in the top 3 leads to a 1v1 race against a locked character. Winning the race wins the character. So like here, I spent 20 minutes finding all these tokens on Radical City. I actually had to look up a guide because I couldn't find the 5th one. Then boom! A challenger appears. I beat him, and now look, I got that creepypasta. Anyone else remember Tails Doll? Man, creepypastas were awesome. And by awesome, I mean I didn't sleep right for like all of middle and high school. But yeah, he kind of cool. He can hover over water, which is an advantage. Others will go under the surface and can't jump out. You are forced to swim to shore. Which brings up a good point. Each racer has their own pros and cons. Sonic is fast and can double jump. I really don't have a con for him now that I think about it. Kind of same with Knuckles, really, except instead of a double jump, he can glide. I tend to use Tails as it may be placebo, but he seems to have good acceleration, and his flight seems to have a tighter turn radius than Knuckles' glide. Amy sucks. It's cool that she's in a car, but she's terrible. Robotnik kind of also sucks, but hey, I got second place with him on the first try. So for me, it's Tails all day, baby. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. That's some Dreamcast music I'm playing. Guess now, the only thing left to discuss is the controls, and man, I was struggling when I first started. I began to question whether or not I actually wanted to do this video. Like, I was like, do I really want to play this? This is absolutely atrocious. I mean, just look at this early footage. I began to Google how to get good at Sonic R, and I was finding these forums where there's always that one guy who's like, I don't know what you're talking about, it's fine. I even whipped out the manual to see if it had some ancient secrets to share. Speaking of the manual, has anyone ever played this Sega Touring Car Championship game that's being advertised on the back? Looks kind of good, and it isn't too terribly expensive. I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments below. Looking through the manual and doing some research online did help, but not by a whole lot. L and R buttons sort of initiate a drift and makes it easier to take harder turns. B accelerates, which is superior to the other option of holding up on the D-pad. A jumps and hitting it again while in the air initiates whatever special ability the character has. It's worth noting that Amy and Robotnik can't jump, which is a hindrance for sure. It's impossible to go straight or to not overcorrect a turn. It is impossible to avoid hitting a wall. You don't feel like you're in control, instead it feels like bull riding. You will fight the slippery movement. My thumbs hurt from trying to stop myself from sliding off the track. Forget Nintendo thumb, this is Saturn thumb. Sonic R thumb. If it wasn't for the controls, I think Sonic R would have a much better legacy. The lack of content could be forgiven in retrospect if it wasn't for the inaccessible handling. I left the difficulty in normal, and while I'm struggling to stay out of the water, I can see the AI having no issues navigating the track. While I'm stuck on a tree trying to take a shortcut, the AI just zooms by. Here, watch this. I'm on the last lap. I'm in first place, right? And then, last minute, Knuckles just steals my victory. This clip is also a great example of what makes Sonic R so difficult at first. Level knowledge. I honestly just took the wrong path at the wrong time. Right next to me, the path that Knuckles took, there's a boost pad, and how it works is that if you have 50 or below coins, it sends you forward at the cost of those coins. So like if you have 10 coins, it'll boost you a little far forward, but if you've got like 50, it boosts you almost the whole way to the finish line. So I took a route that wasn't a shortcut. I should have taken the other route. This wouldn't be a problem, as discovering the correct routes in a fairly open racing game could be really fun. But when it's impossible to race accurately on levels where there's 90-degree turns, cliffs, water hazards, and visible walls, it's just kind of a chore to explore. What I learned that you have to do is barely accelerate around a level and slowly understand the various paths. Ignore the race. Heck, go into balloon hunt mode and just learn. Take your time to figure out where everywhere goes and what the correct pathing is. I did this because I wanted to gather all the footage I needed for a thorough review. See, I actually did a video on this a while back, and rewatching it, it's pretty stinky. It's not a good review, and I wanted to better myself, so this time I really took the time to figure out what I needed to do and where to go. Well, see, I was ready to poop all over this game. I was ready to make a joke about how it's the reason I'm done making Saturn videos, just 2 uploads in. But something happened. I learned to play with Sonic R's rules. Just look at this race right here. Look and enjoy the tunes. Just see how well I race this. I won that fairly cleanly. I mean, yeah, I still hit walls, but I recovered from them rather fast. Heck, using the ruins level as an example, I learned to use the bounces to my advantage. If I can't avoid hitting the wall, incorporate it into the strategy. All of a sudden, I found myself having like a ton of fun. Hunting down tokens, looking for emeralds. It was all laid back. I really didn't need to try hard to win. It's weird. When I wanted to win, I failed consistently. But when I started to just chill, I'd win or, get really close without as much effort. It could be placebo or I could be right, but I think when you're racing really hard, the rubber banding catches up and the AI just, kicks on the gas. Or it's the fact that when I'm trying to race hard, I make more mistakes and I end up putting myself into situations that are hard to recover from. All of a sudden, I'm not having any problems and I'm having a great time. I think the issue with playing Sonic R is that we all go in expecting a competitive racer. And that mindset comes with some expectations. You expect balance, clear pathing, a pick-up-and-play style difficulty, when really, it's an early 3D Sonic prototype disguised as a racer. It's better to be played as a platformer while abusing the provided tools. Race cleanly. Instead of following the road, fly or double jump past it. Find that one reliable route that is the easiest for you to traverse while also being a shortcut. Play Sonic R like Sonic, not like Mario Kart. Yeah, I think I like that statement. I still can't really recommend it to everybody as the first initial hurdle is very annoying. It's a tough game to enjoy after playing a more polished racer. Heck, I was going into this with Sega Rally fresh on the brain, and that was something else. Being used to responsive steering, only to be blindsided by constant hydroplaning. But if you're a Sonic fan or just been curious about it for years and just, never wanted to try it, I say now's the time to take the plunge. The internet sort of argues which version is the best, but the PC copy does have a small modding scene and by default includes changing the weather of the stages so you can kind of play in the snow with frozen water and there's like rain and stuff. I think it's much more fitting as a Saturn game, but of course that'll require emulation unless you want to fork over some dollars for a physical copy. The game isn't cheap. Just take your time. Learn the levels, have fun, and don't get that sweaty. Man, what a weird turn of events. This has all been kind of weird, really. I definitely didn't see myself becoming a Sega Saturn fan. I'm not really sure what happened in my life for this to happen, but I'm 2 games in, and I'm developing a soft spot for this beast. If you told me a year ago I'd be gushing over some Saturn stuff, I'd laugh at you, but, here I am. I just need to get a different controller like as soon as possible. I do want to move on to some Dreamcast games, but I may come back later and check out more titles. In the meantime, I'll be taking the Saturn off my desk, plopping down the Dreamcast, getting the capture card set up, and preparing for some, a whole new world to explore, because I don't really know much about the Dreamcast either. If there's any games you'd like to see reviewed, let me know in the comments, whether it be on Saturn, Dreamcast, PC, or any console, really. Thank you for watching and joining me on this wild ride that is Sonic R. I will see all of you in the next video of whatever that may be.